Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. The research station hung in the void like a rusted chandelier someone forgot to dust, orbiting a patch of space so disputed that 3 different alien civilizations claimed it on their maps. None of them wanted it enough to actually fight over it, which made it perfect for the consortium of aligned species to plop down a bureaucratic nightmare and call it neutral territory. Amelia thought the whole thing looked like someone had welded together the leftovers from a dozen shipwrecks, and called it architecture. She stood in the processing center, arms crossed, watching a line of aliens shuffle through security checkpoints with the enthusiasm of tax auditors at a funeral. The crash landing hadn't been her fault. A micrometeor swarm wasn't exactly something you penciled into your flight plan, but try explaining that to intergalactic insurance adjusters who thought act of God was a problematic phrase because it didn't account for the 18 different creation myths in local space. "Next," droned a voice that sounded like gravel rolling down a crystal staircase. Amelia stepped forward to the medical station, where Orneth waited behind a scanner array that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never actually seen a living being before. The medical officer himself was a sight, a collection of geometric crystal formations that shifted and refracted light, creating the disconcerting impression that he was both solid and hollow at the same time. His species, the Lumtel, communicated through resonance patterns that the station's translators rendered into a perpetually irritated baritone. "Genetic screening," Orneth said, not looking up from his datapad. "Mandatory for all departing vessels. Place your hand on the scanner." "You know," Amelia said, approaching the device, "back home we just checked for a pulse and called it good." "Your home's medical practices are not recognized by consortium standards." "Shocking." She pressed her palm against the cool surface of the scanner. The device hummed, lights flickering in patterns that probably meant something to someone who cared. Orneth's crystalline structure shifted colors, pale blue to amber to something that might have been concern, if minerals could feel concern. The humming stopped. Orneth stared at his display. Then he stared at Amelia. Then back at the display. "Problem?" Amelia asked. "The scanner malfunctioned." "Did it, though?" "It must have." Orneth's voice carried an edge of something that might have been panic, if rocks could panic. "The reading is impossible." "I get that a lot." He ran the scan again. Same hum, same flickering lights, same result that made his crystalline form shift through the entire visible spectrum in what Amelia was starting to recognize as alien distress. "This cannot be correct," Orneth muttered, running the scan a 3rd time. Amelia examined her fingernails. "You know, most people just tell me I have nice hands." "Your genetic code," Orneth's voice cracked, which was impressive for someone without vocal cords. 99% of it registers as unknown, unclassified, not in any database across 8,000 known species. "Huh. Only 1% matches standard carbon-based life markers." "Well," Amelia said, leaning against the scanner with a smile that would have made a shark nervous, "that's the 1% you should worry about." Orneth's color shifted to something that the translator helpfully interpreted as Security Alert Red. His crystalline fingers moved across the control panel with the frantic energy of someone who just realized they were standing next to a bomb disguised as a bored cargo pilot. Alarms started wailing, because of course they did. The processing center transformed from bureaucratic monotony to orchestrated chaos in under 3 seconds. Aliens of various shapes, sizes, and questionable hygiene scattered like someone had yelled, "Free taxes," in a room full of accountants. Security barriers slammed down around Amelia's position with a pneumatic hiss that suggested they'd been waiting their entire mechanical lives for this moment. "Contamination protocol initiated," announced a computer voice that sounded far too pleased with itself. "Biological anomaly detected. Initiating quarantine procedures." "Oh, come on," Amelia said to nobody in particular. "I showered this month." Through the transparent barrier, because apparently her potential threat level didn't warrant privacy, she watched Orneth frantically gesturing to someone off-screen. Within moments, the station commander himself materialized, flanked by 2 security officers whose species Amelia didn't recognize, but whose weapons she recognized just fine. Commander Nalfor was an impressive specimen of the chitneck species, standing roughly 3 meters tall, with an exoskeleton that gleamed like polished obsidian and compound eyes that made him look perpetually surprised and judgmental simultaneously. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translator rendered as profound suspicion. "Explain," Nalfor demanded, his voice like someone dragging furniture across a tile floor. "Medical Officer Orneth, report." Orneth's colors flickered through what Amelia was beginning to think of as his entire emotional range. "Commander, the genetic scan of this human produced anomalous results." "Define anomalous." 99% of her genetic code doesn't exist in our database." Nalfor's antennae twitched. "Impossible! Our database contains genetic markers from every known species in 6 galaxies." "I'm aware, Commander." "Then your equipment is faulty." I ran the scan 4 times. One of Nalfor's eyes swiveled to focus on Amelia, while the others stayed locked on Orneth, which was exactly as unsettling as it sounds. "What are you?" "Tired," Amelia said. "Hungry. Annoyed. Take your pick." "Your species designation?" "Human. Homo sapiens. From Earth. 3rd rock. From a mediocre. Star. Terrible parking. Great pizza." "Humans are documented," Nalfor said, mandibles clicking faster. "We have genetic profiles." "Then check them." "We did. The 1% match confirms you are human. The other 99% suggests you are—" He paused, which Amelia suspected was the insectoid equivalent of trying not to panic. "Something else entirely. Maybe I'm just special. Or dangerous. Those aren't mutually exclusive." Nalfor turned to his security team. "Full containment. Notify the Medical Research Division. I want a xenobiologist here within the hour." He turned back to Amelia. "You will remain in quarantine until we determine what you are." "I literally just told you what I am." "Your genetic code suggests otherwise." Amelia sighed, settling into a seated position on the floor with the casual comfort of someone who'd been detained by bureaucratic aliens before. "You know what your problem is? Your database is limited to known species. I hate to break it to you, Commander, but you don't know everything. Our database is comprehensive. Comprehensive doesn't mean complete." Nalfor's mandibles ground together in what might have been frustration. "What are you hiding?" "Nothing. You're just not asking the right questions." "Then enlighten me." Amelia looked up at the towering insectoid with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "How old is your species, Commander?" "The chitnecks have existed for approximately 200,000 cycles." "And your planet? Stable ecosystem? Predictable evolution?" "Relatively. Standard planetary development." "Right. Now let me tell you about Earth." Amelia's voice dropped into the cadence of someone telling a ghost story around a campfire. "My planet has been trying to kill everything on it for billions of cycles. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, mass extinctions. We've got a greatest hits collection of apocalypses. 99% of everything that ever lived on Earth is dead now. Relevance? Humans are what crawled out of that meat grinder. We're not one species, Commander. We're the genetic highlight reel of billions of extinct species that didn't make it. Every virus that didn't kill us. Every predator we outlasted. Every environmental disaster we survived. It's all still in there. She tapped her temple. Compressed. Waiting. That's your 99% unknown. The processing center had gone very quiet. You're saying your DNA is a biological archive, Orneth said slowly. I'm saying we're Earth's backup drive. And trust me, Amelia's smile widened. You really don't want to see what happens when we hit restore. Nalfor's compound eyes fixed on her with an intensity that suggested he was rapidly reassessing several life choices. Security Level 3 Containment. Now. As additional barriers deployed and guards took position, Amelia leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes. This is going to be a long day, she muttered. She had no idea how right she was. The quarantine cell was, Amelia had to admit, nicer than some apartments she'd rented. Clean white walls that probably cost more than her ship, a cot that looked almost comfortable, and a transparent observation window that let her watch a parade of increasingly nervous aliens gather outside to stare at her like she was a zoo exhibit. She waved at them. Most scurried away. 3 hours into her detention, the door hissed open to admit a new visitor. This one was wet. Very wet. Grishmole introduced herself with a voice like bubbles popping in a swamp, her amphibious form contained in what appeared to be a mobile water tank on mechanical legs. Through the transparent membrane, Amelia could see greenish skin, multiple gill slits, and eyes that sat on stalks capable of independent movement. I am Grishmole, the xenobiologist announced, her translated voice carrying a musical quality that almost made the situation pleasant. I specialize in genetic anomalies. You are the most anomalous thing I have encountered in 30 cycles of research. I'm blushing. Really? Grishmole's eye stalks rotated in what might have been amusement. Your sarcasm is noted. It will not expedite your release. Worth a shot. The xenobiologist settled her tank apparatus near the observation window and pulled up a holographic display that filled the space between them with scrolling genetic data. Amelia recognized the double helix structure. Apparently, DNA's basic architecture was consistent enough across species that even aliens used the same visual shorthand. This, Grishmole said, highlighting a small section of the display, is the 1% we can identify. Standard markers for carbon-based life, cellular respiration, protein synthesis, basic metabolic functions. She gestured to the vast remaining sea of data. This is everything else, and it makes no sense. Maybe your sensors aren't calibrated for humans. We have human genetic profiles, 12,000 samples from various populations across your homeworld. All of them match our database at 98% recognition rates. Yours matches at 1%. Eye stalks swiveled to focus on Amelia with disconcerting precision. What makes you different? Amelia considered her answer. Outside the cell, more aliens had gathered. Word was clearly spreading. You know what junk DNA is? Genetic material with no apparent function. Most species have some. Humans have a lot, like a suspicious amount. Scientists back home argued for cycles about what it was for. Amelia stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind her back. Turns out it's not junk, it's history. Explain. Your database recognizes active genes, the stuff that's currently running the show. What it doesn't recognize is the archive. Humans carry genetic material from viruses that infected our ancestors millions of cycles ago. Broken genes from species we evolved from. Whole chunks of code that only activate under specific conditions. Grishmol's display shifted, zooming into portions of the unknown sequences. Dormant genetic material. More like compressed files. Evolution's way of keeping options open. Amelia turned to face the xenobiologist. Your species evolved on a stable world, right? Predictable seasons, manageable threats? The Rethnol homeworld has mild seasonal variation and limited predation pressure. Right, so your DNA could stay streamlined, efficient. You didn't need backup systems because your environment was consistent. Amelia's voice took on that storytelling quality again. Earth wasn't consistent. Earth was a nightmare. Every few million cycles, something catastrophic would happen. Species that couldn't adapt went extinct. Species that could adapt passed on their adaptation mechanisms. And humans inherited these mechanisms. We inherited everything. We're like those people who can't throw anything away because they might need it someday, except instead of old furniture, we're hoarding genetic traits from the Cretaceous period. One of Grishmol's eye stalks retracted into her tank, a gesture that Amelia was learning meant deep thought. This would explain the viral markers we're detecting, ancient retroviral sequences integrated into your genome. 8% of human DNA comes from old viral infections. They're just part of us now. And the rest of the unidentified sequences? Regulatory genes, epigenetic switches, stress response systems, pain management overrides, healing acceleration protocols. Basically, every trick our ancestors learned to not die got written into the code. Amelia's smile turned sharp. We're not just one species, Grishmol. We're a greatest hits compilation of everything that survived Earth's multiple apocalypses. The xenobiologist went very still, which for someone floating in a tank was particularly noticeable. That should not be possible. Genetic drift should have eliminated non-functional sequences. Who said they're non-functional? You stated they're dormant. Dormant until needed. Think of it like emergency software that only boots up when the system crashes. Grishmol's eye stalks swiveled in different directions, processing. You're describing a genetic defense system, adaptive traits that activate under stress conditions. Now you're getting it. This is... The xenobiologist's voice trailed off into a series of bubbling sounds the translator gave up on. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted to something that might have been fear. This is terrifying. Is it, though? Yes? Grishmol manipulated her display, pulling up new data. I've been reviewing human history, your medical records, combat documentation. The things your species can survive should not be survivable. We're resilient. You're impossible. The display shifted to show a medical scan. This is a human soldier who sustained 40% burns, shrapnel wounds to 3 vital organs, and blood loss that should have been fatal. Recovery time, 6 months. Full functionality restored. Modern medicine is amazing. The injuries occurred in a pre-industrial period. Treatment was primitive. Eye stalks focused with laser intensity. He survived because his body refused to die. Multiple redundant systems, enhanced healing responses, pain tolerance that let him remain conscious despite catastrophic trauma. Amelia shrugged. Adrenaline is a wonderful thing. Adrenaline is a stress hormone. Yours functions like a combat stimulant. Your heart rate increases 200%. Pain receptors partially shut down. Blood flow redirects to essential systems, and you gain temporary strength increase of 30 to 50%. Grishmoll's voice dropped. You're describing a biological weapon that activates under threat conditions, or a survival mechanism from a species that spent millions of cycles being hunted by things with bigger teeth? The distinction is academic when observed from the receiving end. Before Amelia could respond, the door hissed open again. Commander Nalfor entered, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood another figure, tall, reptilian, with scales that shifted through shades of deep crimson and amber. The newcomer moved with the fluid grace of a predator, which made sense because the Slendar were apex predators on their homeworld. Amelia of Earth, Nalfor announced. This is Ambassador Will Neff of the Slendar Diplomatic Corps. He requested this meeting specifically. Will Neff's vertical pupils fixed on Amelia with the kind of focus reserved for prey assessment. When he spoke, his voice carried a sibilant quality that the translator rendered as measured and dangerous. We have met your kind before. Have you now? 60 cycles ago, first contact at the perimeter colonies. Will Neff stepped closer to the transparent barrier. 3 of our warships encountered a human vessel. It was small, primitive by our standards. We believed it would be simple to capture and study. Amelia's expression didn't change. How'd that work out? We lost all 3 warships. The room went very quiet. The humans appeared friendly initially, Will Neff continued, his voice taking on the quality of someone recounting a nightmare. Compliant. Cooperative. They allowed boarding parties, submitted to inspection. His scales rippled in a pattern that suggested remembered trauma. Then one of our soldiers made an error, drew a weapon at the wrong moment. Perceived threat. And? Your kind changed, like watching prey transform into predators between one breath and the next. They moved through our ships like... He struggled for words. Like they were born in the corridors, using our own environments against us, turning our advantages into weaknesses. They didn't just fight. They hunted. Grishmoll's eye stalks had retracted into her tank. Commander Nalfor's antennae lay flat against his head. 1,200 Slendar soldiers, Will Neff said quietly, dead or missing within 2 hours. The humans took escape pods and left. We tracked them for 3 systems before deciding pursuit was inadvisable. Smart choice, Amelia said. Is it true? Nalfor asked. What Ambassador Will Neff describes? I wasn't there, but yeah, sounds about right. Amelia met their stares without flinching. You want to know what's in that 99% unknown? That's what. Millions of cycles of being the prey animal that decided to stop running and start hunting back. We learned from everything that tried to eat us, kept the lessons, passed them down. This is why we must detain you, Will Neff said. For galactic security, your species represents a clear and present danger. To whom? To everyone who might threaten you. Then here's a thought. Amelia's voice hardened. Don't threaten us. Will Neff's scales shifted to darker shades. That is not sufficient assurance. It's the only one you're getting. Ambassador Will Neff is correct, Nalfor said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. This station houses representatives from 18 species. Your presence poses a potential risk. I've been nothing but cooperative. Because you haven't been threatened yet, Will Neff countered. The moment you perceive danger, you'll become what you truly are. And what's that? A weapon pretending to be civilized. Amelia laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. You want to see uncivilized? Take a look at galactic history. How many wars are currently running in this sector alone? 6? 8? How many species in the consortium have standing militaries that could glass planets? She leaned forward. Humans aren't unique in our capacity for violence. We're just honest about it. Honesty does not mitigate danger. No, but it makes us predictable. You know what humans do when threatened. We fight back. Simple, straightforward. Not our fault if you mistake cooperation for weakness. The alarms started wailing before anyone could respond. A different sound this time, deeper, more urgent. The kind of alarm that said the previous alarms were just practice runs for this, the real emergency. Security breach, the computer announced with that same inappropriately cheerful voice. Hostile vessels detected. Multiple hull breaches in sectors 9 through 12. Armed intruders confirmed. Station defense systems offline. All personnel initiate evacuation protocols. Through the observation window, Amelia watched the corridor transform into chaos. Aliens running in every direction, none of them agreeing on which direction constituted safety. Lights flickered. Something exploded in the distance, close enough to rattle the walls. Commander Nalfor's mandibles clicked rapid-fire patterns of what was definitely panic. The Jolnak! They've found us! Who? Amelia asked. Pirates, Grishmol said, her eye stalks fully extended in alarm. The worst kind. They raid research stations for data they can sell. They don't take prisoners. Another explosion, closer this time. Will Neff's scales had gone completely black. The station defenses should have held. Someone sabotaged them, Nalfor said. Inside job. They've been planning this. He turned to his security team. Get to the command center. Organize resistance. The guards fled. Wise choice, in Amelia's opinion. She looked at Orneth, still standing near the door controls. You should probably run, too. I cannot abandon my post. Your post is about to have pirates in it. Another explosion. The lights went out, replaced by emergency illumination that painted everything in shades of blood and shadow. In the dim red light, Amelia stood and walked to the barrier. I have a suggestion. Now is not the time, Nalfor snapped. Now is exactly the time. Those pirates? They're the threat you were so worried about. They're coming, fast, armed, ready to kill everyone between them and whatever data they want. She pressed her hand against the transparent wall. So, here's the deal. You can leave me locked in here, safe and contained while your station gets torn apart. Or? Grishmol asked quietly. Amelia's smile would have made a shark look friendly. You let me show you what that 99% unknown actually does. The silence that followed Amelia's offer lasted exactly 2 seconds before another explosion rocked the station hard enough to crack the observation window. Hairline fractures spread across the transparent barrier like frozen lightning, and somewhere in the distance, someone, or something, was screaming. Orneth's crystalline form flickered through colors that suggested he was having what passed for a nervous breakdown in mineral-based life forms. This violates 18 different containment protocols. So does dying, Amelia said helpfully. Commander Nalfor's compound eyes tracked the chaos erupting in the corridor outside. Through the damaged window, they could see aliens fleeing past, some of them already wounded. The Jolnak were efficient. Amelia had to give them that. Whatever they wanted, they were moving fast to get it. If we release you, Nalfor started. When you release me, what assurance do we have that you won't pose a greater threat than the pirates? Amelia's expression shifted to something that might have been genuine. Because unlike them, I don't kill people for profit. I kill people who threaten the things I'm protecting. She paused. Right now, that includes this station. Your call, Commander. Wilneff's scales rippled with indecision. This is madness. This is Tuesday for humans, Amelia corrected. We literally invented the concept of hold my beer and watch this. Another explosion, close enough that dust rained from the ceiling. The emergency lights flickered. Somewhere in the station's guts, critical systems were failing with the steady progression of dominoes falling in slow motion. Do it, Nalfor said quietly. Ornith's protests sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. Commander, I must object. Objection noted. Override code Null 339. Release the containment field. The barriers dropped with a pneumatic hiss that sounded almost disappointed. Amelia stepped through, rolling her shoulders with the casual ease of someone who'd just been released from a mild inconvenience rather than alien quarantine. Thank you, she said, already moving toward the door. Now, where's your medical supply room? Why do you need... Grishmole's eye stalks tracked Amelia's movement with growing alarm. Because I'm not armed, and improvisation is humanity's second favorite pastime after making terrible decisions. Amelia paused at the doorway, looking back. You might want to get somewhere secure. This is going to get loud. I'm coming with you, Nalfor said. Bad idea. My station, my responsibility. Your funeral. Amelia glanced at the others. The rest of you, command center, lock it down. Whatever the Jolnak are after, make sure they don't get it. Wilneff's vertical pupils narrowed. You give orders easily for a prisoner. Former prisoner. Significant upgrade. She disappeared into the corridor, Nalfor following despite his better judgment. The medical supply room was 2 levels down, which meant navigating corridors that looked like someone had redecorated with explosions. Sparking wires dangled from ceiling panels. Atmosphere leaked from hull breaches in whistling streams that would have been musical if they weren't signaling imminent death. Bodies, or what passed for bodies in various alien anatomies, lay scattered in positions that suggested the Jolnak weren't big on warning shots. Amelia moved through the carnage with the focused efficiency of someone checking items off a shopping list. She stepped over debris, avoided the sparking wires, and barely glanced at the casualties. Not callousness, just prioritization. The dead were dead. The living still needed help. How can you be so calm? Nalfor asked, his mandibles clicking with stress. Training. Plus, this isn't even in my top 10 worst situations. Amelia rounded a corner, paused, then pulled back as weapons fire scorched the wall where her head had been. Make that top 11. 3 Jolnesh pirates occupied the intersection ahead. The species was built like someone had crossed a bear with a nightmare and given it opposable thumbs. Dense muscle, thick hide that served as natural armor, and enough limbs to make coordinating fashion choices a philosophical debate. They carried weapons that looked like they could punch holes through small moons. Station security, one of them growled in a voice like grinding gears. Surrender or be neutralized. Option 3, Amelia said, not to them, but to Nalfor. Watch the walls. She moved before the pirates could process the statement. Not running. That would imply retreat. This was something else. Something that made Nalfor's evolutionary hindbrain scream warnings his conscious mind couldn't fully articulate. Amelia grabbed a loose pipe from the debris-strewn floor. Nothing fancy, just metal tubing about a meter long. The first Jolnak fired, but she was already moving, using the corridor's geometry, making the pirate's size work against them. The shot went wide, hit a power conduit, and suddenly the intersection was filled with electrical arcing that looked like angry lightning trapped in a box. The pirates roared, stumbled back from the unexpected light show. Amelia didn't stumble. She charged through the electrical storm with the kind of confidence that suggested either crazy or calculated, and the line between those was thinner than anyone wanted to admit. The pipe caught the first pirate across the face with enough force to dent his natural armor. Not enough to kill. Yolnak were tough, but enough to make him question his life choices. The second pirate swung with one of those extra limbs, massive fist aimed at Amelia's head. She ducked under it, using his momentum against him, redirecting his punch into the third pirate's weapon. The gun discharged, caught pirate number 2 in the leg, and suddenly the intersection was chaos in 3-part harmony. Nalfor watched from relative safety as Amelia transformed the cramped space into her advantage. She used the walls like launching pads, the low ceiling to restrict their movement, their own bulk to block their companions' shots. Every move was precise, economic, no wasted energy, like watching someone who'd spent their entire life being the smaller, weaker thing in the fight, and learned to make those disadvantages irrelevant. The third pirate went down when Amelia somehow convinced him to trip over his own weapon. The second followed when she used the electrical arcing to her advantage, herding him into the sparking wires until his nervous system decided unconsciousness was preferable to continued participation. The first pirate, the one she'd hit initially, decided retreat was the better part of valor and fled, leaving his companions behind. Total elapsed time: 26 seconds. Amelia stood in the intersection, barely breathing hard, surrounded by unconscious pirates and flickering lights. She looked at Nalfor. Medical supplies. That way? That was... The commander couldn't find words. Efficient? Yeah. Humans got really good at fighting things bigger than us. Had to. Everything on Earth used to be bigger than us. She stepped over a groaning pirate. Come on. We're not done. The medical supply room was, miraculously, intact. Amelia moved through it like she had a checklist, only she could see, grabbing items that made sense to her and absolute nonsense to Nalfor. Antiseptic that could double as accelerant. Bandages that burned with the right chemical catalyst. A laser scalpel that definitely wasn't designed for combat applications, but was about to get a field promotion. How do you know which supplies to take? Nalfor asked. I don't. I'm making educated guesses based on which labels have warning symbols. She stuffed items into a medical bag. The universal language of this will hurt you. This is insane. This is humans adapting. We're really, really good at taking whatever's available and turning it into tools. Or weapons. Or tools that become weapons. We're flexible like that. Another explosion shook the station. Closer this time. Much closer. Amelia slung the bag over her shoulder. How many Jolnach would you estimate are on the station? Our sensors detected 12 before they went offline. And how many security personnel do you have? 18. Had 18. Nalfor's voice dropped. Unknown how many are still functional. So we're outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting in an environment that's actively falling apart around us. Amelia's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Finally. An even fight. Your definition of even is concerning. Your definition of survival is about to get updated. Now, she checked the corridor, clear for the moment. Where's your command center? And what's the fastest route that doesn't involve walking through pirate-infested corridors? All routes are potentially pirate-infested. Right. Then we take the most interesting one. She started moving, and Nalfor found himself following, despite every survival instinct screaming at him to go literally anywhere else. They moved through the station's guts, through maintenance corridors that smelled like ozone and fear. Twice they encountered pirates. Twice Amelia used the environment, a steam vent here, a gravity plating malfunction there, to turn the corridors themselves into weapons. She fought like the station was her ally, like she'd studied its layout by osmosis and knew exactly which panels to kick, which conduits to rupture, which systems to overload for maximum chaos. The pirates were stronger, better armed, more experienced in station combat. None of it mattered. Amelia fought like someone who'd internalized a simple truth. The deadliest weapon in any fight wasn't strength or firepower. It was the willingness to use everything, absolutely everything, as a potential advantage. They reached the command center to find it under siege. 6 Jolinak pirates hammered at the reinforced doors. While inside, Grishmol and the remaining staff tried desperately to keep the data archives from being breached. The pirates hadn't noticed Amelia and Nalfor yet, too focused on the doors that were holding but wouldn't hold forever. "Ideas?" Nalfor whispered. "Several. All terrible." Amelia assessed the situation with the calm focus of someone doing math homework. How structurally important is this corridor? Very. It's a primary support junction. Perfect. That's not perfect. That's the opposite of perfect. Depends on your definition. She pulled out the laser scalpel and several items from the medical bag. Get ready to run. When I say go, we go straight for the command center doors. Don't stop. Don't look back. What are you going to? Amelia was already moving, placing items she'd taken from medical along the corridor's support struts with the precision of someone who'd done demolition work before. Or maybe she was just improvising with terrifying effectiveness. With humans, Nalfor was learning. The distinction was academic. The pirates finally noticed them, turned, raised weapons. Their leader, a massive Yolnach who made the others look small, stepped forward with confidence born from size and firepower. "Surrender," he commanded. Amelia looked up from her work. No. She triggered the laser scalpel, set to maximum burn, and touched it to the first container of medical accelerant. The corridor became fire and physics having an argument that physics lost. The explosion wasn't large enough to breach the hull, just large enough to turn the junction into a pinch point where the support structure decided gravity was more of a suggestion than a rule. The ceiling came down in a controlled collapse that was probably accidental but looked suspiciously deliberate. "Go!" Amelia shouted. They ran. The pirates tried to follow, but found themselves trapped behind debris and fire, and the realization that they'd just been outmaneuvered by someone who turned medical supplies into tactical demolition. The command center doors opened just long enough for Amelia and Nalfor to slide through, then slammed shut with a finality that suggested the personnel inside were done with hospitality. Grishmol's eye stalks extended in what might have been relief. "You survived." "Disappointed?" Amelia asked, already moving to the security monitors. Confused. "The Jolnak are veteran raiders." "So? I'm a veteran human. That comes with perks." She studied the monitors, counting remaining pirates, tracking their movements. 8 left on the station. They're regrouping near your data archives. Whatever they came for is there. "We must defend it," Nalfor said. "No, we must make them come to us." Amelia's eyes tracked patterns only she could see. "That 99% unknown you were so worried about? Part of it is pattern recognition. Humans got really, really good at predicting behavior, anticipating threats, thinking like predators while being prey." She pointed to the monitors. "They're going to breach the archives, fail to find what they want because you smart aliens backed up the important data, and then they're coming here. to you, to make you give it to them." Silence fell over the command center. "That's actually their plan," Ornith said quietly. "I know. I can read it in how they're moving." Amelia turned to face them, and in the emergency lighting her expression carried something that made even Wilnef's predator instincts twitch. "So, we're going to be ready. You're going to give me access to your environmental controls. And I'm going to show you exactly what that 1% you can identify looks like when it stops being civilized." "And if this doesn't work?" Wilnef asked. Amelia's smile was all teeth. "Then you'll get to see the 99% you can't." The thing about environmental controls, Amelia reflected, while adjusting atmospheric pressure in Corridor 12, was that most species designed them for comfort and safety. Humans designed things to work under the absolute worst conditions imaginable, then made those conditions worse, just to test the limits. The Yolenach pirates learned this lesson the hard way. When they breached the data archives, exactly as predicted, they found nothing. Backed-up systems, encrypted drives, and a whole lot of disappointment. Their frustration lasted right up until they started toward the command center and discovered the corridors had become hostile environments. Gravity fluctuations that made walking an exercise in chaos theory. Atmosphere mixtures that were breathable but induced disorientation in species not adapted to Earth's volatile atmospheric history. Temperature swings that weren't lethal but made thinking clearly an Olympic-level challenge. And through it all, Amelia moved like she owned the station. She used access shafts designed for maintenance drones, appeared behind pirates using routes that shouldn't have existed, turned every system the station had into either a weapon or a distraction. The medical supplies helped, flash-bang equivalents made from antiseptic and chemical compounds that the safety labels had specifically warned against mixing. Humans, it turned out, viewed warning labels as challenge guidelines. The pirate leader, Morvetch, she'd learned from intercepted communications, finally cornered her in a cargo bay. He was massive, even for a Jolnak, armed with enough firepower to level a building. Confident in the way apex predators were confident when facing something smaller. "Enough games," Morvetch growled. "You've cost me 6 soldiers and 3 hours. This ends now." Amelia stood in the center of the cargo bay, empty-handed, surrounded by shipping containers and magnetic clamps. She looked tiny compared to him, fragile, breakable. "You're right," she said. "It does." Morvetch charged, 300 kilograms of muscle and fury and absolute certainty. Amelia hit the magnetic clamp release. The shipping container, 8 tons of research equipment, swung down with the kind of momentum that physics professors wrote equations about. Morvetch had time to look up, register the threat, and make a sound that the translator couldn't quite capture, but probably meant something like, "Oh no." The impact was visceral. When station security arrived 3 minutes later, having finally regrouped, they found Amelia sitting on the unconscious pirate leader, eating a ration bar she'd found in one of the containers. "Environmental hazard," she said, through a mouthful of something that tasted like cardboard and optimism. "Terrible safety protocols on your cargo bays." The remaining pirates surrendered within the hour. Turned out that watching a human turn a space station into a combination haunted house and tactical nightmare was bad for morale. Who knew? The command center had transformed from crisis hub to uncomfortable debriefing room. Amelia sat across from Commander Nalfor, Grishmol, Wilnef, and Ornith, all of whom were looking at her with expressions that ranged from awe to mild terror to deep confusion. "Your genetic code," Grishmol said slowly, her eye stalks weaving patterns that suggested she was still processing, "contains evolutionary adaptations from millions of cycles of survival pressure. That's the technical way to say it, yeah. You're not just a species, Ornith added, his crystalline structure displaying colors that suggested he'd moved past fear into scientific fascination. You're a biological archive of every threat your planet ever produced. Also technically accurate? Nalfor's mandibles clicked softly. Why do humans seek peace? If you're so adapted for conflict, why choose cooperation? Amelia set down her water container, actual water this time, not improvised chemical weapons, and met his compound eyes. Because we remember. That's part of the archive, too. We remember what it cost to survive. Every extinct species, every failed civilization, every war that solved nothing. We carry those ghosts. She leaned back. The 99% unknown isn't just violence and adaptation. It's also empathy, born from understanding suffering. We know what it's like to be prey, to be afraid, to lose everything. We don't want others to experience that. Yet, you're capable of such— Wilneff paused, searching for words. Such targeted aggression? Sure. When threatened, when protecting something worth protecting. But that's the point. We choose. The biological capabilities are there, but we decide when to use them. Amelia's expression softened slightly. That's what the 1% you can identify does. Language, culture, ethics. It keeps the 99% in check. Wilneff's scales had shifted to lighter shades. Respect, if Amelia was reading the color changes correctly. I may have misjudged your species. You judged us based on what we can do. Fair. But we should be judged on what we choose to do. Ornith processed her departure paperwork with none of the earlier hesitation. The genetic scan results were flagged, annotated, and filed under a classification that roughly translated to approach with respect, not hostility. Your ship has been repaired, the medical officer said, his voice carrying warmth that surprised Amelia. Courtesy of the station, least we could do. Appreciated. And this, he handed her a data chip, is your complete genetic analysis. Should you encounter other species who question your nature, this may prove educational. Amelia examined the chip. The file name read, Classification, Tier 1 Adaptive Species. Engage only with full informed consent. She laughed. Catchy. At the airlock, Commander Nalfor stood with what passed for respectful posture in Chitnek's body language. You saved this station. You let me out of quarantine. Team effort. What will you tell other humans about how we treated you? The truth. You were cautious, not cruel. Concerned, not hostile. You made the right call when it mattered. She extended her hand, that universal human gesture of peace and partnership. Nalfor studied the hand for a moment, then carefully touched it with one clawed appendage. Safe travels, Amelia of Earth. Safe bureaucracy, Commander. Her ship felt small after the station's expansive corridors, but it was hers, familiar. The engines hummed to life with the reliable purr of machinery that had been properly repaired by aliens who apparently took courtesy repairs seriously. As she cleared the station's gravitational envelope and set course for the next waypoint, Amelia pulled up the genetic analysis file, skimmed through the technical details, the evolutionary annotations, the carefully worded warnings about engaging humans in hostile scenarios. At the bottom, someone, probably Grishmol, had added a personal note. To whom it may concern. Humans are 99% unknown because they contain multitudes. They are dangerous when threatened, gentle when safe, and impossible to predict with certainty. They will surprise you. Let them surprise you in friendship rather than conflict. The choice, as always, is yours. Choose wisely. Amelia smiled, saved the file, and turned her attention to the navigation display. Behind her, the research station grew smaller in the viewport, a rusted chandelier in the void, now with fewer pirates and more respect for species whose genetic code didn't fit in simple databases. Somewhere in that station, alarms were probably still resetting, systems recalibrating, aliens processing the fact that the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't the 99% unknown. It was that the 1% they showed to the galaxy, the civilization, the cooperation, the choice to be peaceful, was strong enough to keep the other 99% in check. Most of the time, when it mattered. And that, Amelia thought, as she engaged faster-than-light travel, was probably the scariest thing of all. Not what humans could do, but what they chose not to.